evening, Internet World and Universe. This is O.R.Ash, and welcome back to the Drawing Matrix. We are back once again to continue our Ultimates Overhauled series. Now that we've polished off the first 3 full playlists of Ben's arsenal, we continue down the road of the UAF era with a batch of aliens we label as the Legacy Batch. In this batch, these are aliens that have notably unique debuts and attributes. Today, we will be covering not only the Alien Force add-ons being Lodestar, Rath, and Nanomech, but we'll also be poking into Omniverse early again and taking a peek at Shocksquatch and Feedback. Now, I'm caffeinated, so let's begin.
I'm not just any drone. I'm half drone, half human.
Starting off today, we have the mini-mechanical bitty boy, Nanomech. Nanomech was the only alien, not counting Ben Man, to have his debut outside of the animated medium of the franchise, premiering in the live-action movie, Alien Swarm. He's also extremely unique because he's the first ever species created by the Omnitrix itself, as a hybridization of Ben's human DNA and the unknown artificially created nanochips. For an ultimate nanochip itself, I always imagine that its abilities would be similar to Elena's in Ultimate Alien. You know, the swarm generation, mimicry, tech fuckery, all that stuff. But because Nanomech has that little bit of human in him, it gives me a bit of a different direction to take him in. For my Ultimate Nanomech, I want him to be a stronger bridge between biological and technological. Because he has those organic bits and their ability to naturally heal, and the robo bits that work harder, better, faster, and stronger, I imagine him as a sort of cyborg healer. For his main new abilities, I want to give him biotech alteration and enhancement, meaning that he can heal almost any physical injury or ailment by attacking it with little repair nanochips that his body creates. Because of the more organic nature of these chips, they would be able to adapt and mimic their host's DNA and leave them looking like there was never any injury to begin with. Combining this with his own swarm generation, Ultimate Nanomech, like Elena, would be able to create mimic constructs of living things, but his are a bit more unique in the sense that they are perfect living copies, right down to the DNA. Also, just for fun, they can still shapeshift and make tiny tech improvements to their hosts. If Ultimate Nanomech made Manny a brand new hand, it would look and feel completely real, just like his old one. But Manny could still shapeshift it into a gun or something. That'd be pretty cool, right? So, to recap, for his new abilities, he now has biotech alteration and enhancement, and he can create bioswarm mimics. As for his trade-offs, I'm getting rid of his bioelectricity attacks. This ultimate is a healer, not a DPS. Other than that, may I present my take on an Ultimate Nanomech that I dub Botfly. Ultimate Nanomech.
You wanna fight? You wanna fight?
Most notably, Rath is known to be the first transformation to influence Ben's personality at a drastic level. Now, there is an already existing Ultimate Rath from Omniverse, but comparatively, you can kinda just chalk him up to being a reskin. He gains a couple new claws and adapts a new Kraven the Hunter aesthetic, but nothing else really changes on him. Is the Penuncian vest supposed to be part of his body? For my take on his ultimate, I wanted to lean back into his wrestling aesthetic. Being partially based on former pro wrestler Hulk Hogan, I thought it would be fitting for the wrestling aesthetic to push his extreme personality even further into the ring by making him based on that kind of pompous, stuck in their glory days, washed up type of wrestler. Like, this dude is just toxic now. Rath is known to be pretty much indestructible. The dude did free fall thousands of feet out of a ship just to get up and yell at the crater that his face made. So I believe that in the UES, that's what I'm calling it from now on, that with no real physical threats to him, that he probably would have just thrived and had fun kicking ultimate asses. For his design, I based it primarily more on heavy-set wrestlers and weightlifters that have that kind of, rotund, strong paunch. These dudes are stacked. This is to show that Ultimate Rath, despite his immense physical prowess, is probably a bit gluttonous and has a bit of a belly. As for his abilities, because he thrives, I don't really think he would change that much, because he doesn't have to adapt to anything. So I'm just giving him one new add-on ability, and that is retractable harpoon-like claws, meaning that he can now launch his wrist claws at enemies and pull them back to himself with these weird tail-like tethers. The ropes made of flesh, I don't know, man. This, of course, is meant to reference the signature ability of Scorpion from Mortal Kombat. I'm also going to be adding 4 more of these harpoon claws onto his back, giving him a wider range of attack, and because I imagine him launching himself with them as a visual nod to wrestlers on the ropes of a ring. So, to recap, as far as his new abilities, he now has retractable harpoon claws on his wrists and lower back, and because I want to nix his one weakness of needing to breathe, his body now operates at a much lower amount of oxygen. As far as his trade-offs, because his body now operates on less oxygen, there is less getting to his brain, resulting in less coherent thought and fits of uncontrolled rage. Other than that, may I present my take on an ultimate Rath that I dub Hostel Gato.
Ultimate Wrath!
My magnetic personality makes me more than a match for you.
Next up, we have what should be Ben's most attractive alien in the arsenal. Lodestar was unlocked and teased in Alien Force Season 2's finale, but not actually revealed until 7 months later, 5 episodes into Season 3. Lodestar was notably the first brand new alien added onto the Alien Force playlist, but his addition felt more like an afterthought, overshadowed by the return of a handful of Ben's classics. However, he is the first alien to appear in the whole of Omniverse. I struggled for a while to solidify his concept. At first being more like a stone Rubik's Cube man, and then essentially just a magnetic version of Goop, I ended up settling on something a bit more abstract. For his abilities, we are pushing the magnets to the extreme and giving him ferrofluid generation. With this, he can produce globby blobs of dark magnetic goo that he can shift between solid and liquid states, used not only for attacks or subduing foes, but if an individual comes in physical contact with too much ferrofluid, it can be corrosive, and be used to even change the individual polarity of the person and make them susceptible to Lodestar's magnetic grip. Lodestar originally being made of these weird magnetic pillar stones made me want to lean him into the realm of like a biblically accurate structure thing. I don't know, just something abstract and weird looking. I actually ended up coming up with 2 designs and I couldn't pick between them, so now we have one that is more bipedal that I refer to as Titan, and the other is kind of a dreidel made of crab claws that I refer to as Obelisk. They have the same abilities and are both inspired by the cool, colorful states that ferrofluid can take. To recap, for his new abilities, he can now produce density shifting ferrofluid, he can shift the individual polarity of a person to magnetize them, and I imagine that he now has full control of his weird pillar structure body, so he can now shift that around a bit to like twist and dodge attacks and twist into weird shapes. As far as his trade-offs, I am very simply getting rid of his mouth. His head is already disconnected from his body, so he can't eat anyway. I don't know why Omniverse gave him a mouth. Other than that, may I present 2 designs for my take on an ultimate Lodestar that I dub Farewell, Titan and Obelisk.
Ultimate Lodestar!
Next up, we have the big-footed conductive Canadian, Shocksquatch. Now, many may chalk the Squatch up to just being yet another peanut in Ben's Electric Alien Gallery, but first debuting in the Heroes United crossover special, he is the first and only known alien to be unlocked outside of Ben's dimension. But we wouldn't actually get to see much of him until the show and art transition over to Omniverse. Now, for my ultimate Shocksquatch, the one I ended up settling on was the Monkey King. No, not that one. The Sun Wukong Monkey King. Mainly drawing from his ability to summon and ride on clouds, I thought pairing that with our Yeti electricity would be perfect, making for a lightning storm theme while keeping the monkey business. So the main new ability for this ultimate is that he can now use his electricity to condense the electrons in the air around him, creating storm clouds, and he can send them off independently, or he can condense them in so much so that he's able to carry himself up on it and fly around like he's on a nimbus. For an additional ability that I thought would just be fun, his horns are now so large that he can pick up radio signals with them. With this ability, he can listen in and interfere with signals, or even broadcast his own voice out to the airwaves. He can also harness and channel them into a large screeching burst for attacking. Anyway, to recap, for his new abilities, he can now generate and ride on lightning storm clouds, and he is able to harness and influence radio signals with his elongated horns. As for his trade-offs, because of his new stature, his physical strength is actually limited mainly to his legs. His arms just ain't as good as they used to be. Other than that, may I present my take on an ultimate Shocksquatch that I dub Storm Trekker.
Ultimate Shocksquatch!
Why do you like Feedback so much anyway?
Because he's awesome and cool.
Last up on the plate today, we have the static sucker full of swagger, Feedback. Being a retcon that no one complains about, Feedback was dropped retroactively into the beginnings of Ben's tween years and finally gave us an answer as to why he took the watch off in the first place. A very traumatic answer. But from the moment he debuted, Feedback has been a kick-ass powerhouse that people adore. Now, when I call him a powerhouse, I mean it. He is the one and only OP alien that I actually really like.
Alright, got lost earlier, you fired! Yeah. Except you stay.
I wanted to lean into his cable cord aesthetic, so I changed the upper half of his body to be composed of more of those plug tendrils that he usually has coming out of his head. He could untangle them to cover a wider range and reach. At the ends of these tendrils are sharp clamps, resembling jumper cables. He uses these for close combat in the times that he can't find energy to pick up. All along his body, his metallic nodes have now turned into brace-like cuffs that he can electromagnetically keep stuck together or dispense to subdue enemies with. And to solve his forced output problem, he now is able to store excess energy into various sized battery packs built off of his hip nodes. He can use these hip nodes to simply store the energy, or he can even break them off and throw them like grenades, use them as batteries, or even reverse polarity on them to create an EMP effect. And because I want to add just a little extra something for fun, he can now perform a move that I call Blackout Blitz, where, for a very brief moment, he can mass absorb all the light particle photons in an area, creating a temporary blind spot of darkness. Anyway, to recap, as far as his new abilities, he now has prehensile wireframing, he has sharp metallic maws, electromagnetic cuff generation, storage, EMP, and bomb batteries, and a new move that I call Blackout Blitz. As far as his trade-offs, I am simply getting rid of his tail. This boy is OP, and he is staying that way. Other than that, may I present my take on an ultimate Feedback that I dub Powerline.
Ultimate Feedback.
And that is it! We are finally caught up to the point in the playlists where Ben actually has the Ultimatrix. And of course, coincidental franchise theming, the next episode where we start the actual Ultimates of the Ultimatrix will be episode number 10. People better start calling me Greg, because I gotta round up the Andromeda boys. If you'd like to help support us, consider joining our Patreon. It's only $1 a month and you can get a bunch of exclusive sneak peeks and behind-the-scenes content on all our project productions, like the 5 Years Later motion comic, our animated series and beyond, and a couple secret things we got cooking up in the back. Also, make sure to check out all of our other links below, like our Twitch, where you can hang with us while we work. We just started a new schedule there, check them out. And my socials, where I'll be posting the albedo edits of these boys. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, I am O.R.Ash, and I'm surviving. Are you? Peace.